What is up, everybody? Matt Moda here, and what we're going to do in this video, we're going to talk NBA player prop betting strategy and how I personally use PropsMadness to help with my NBA player prop betting. Over the last 2 years, I've profited about 140, a little bit over 140 units on the NBA. It includes the entirety of the 2023-2024 season, and then includes all my profit up until about right before the All-Star break for the NBA of the 2024-2025 season. And I'm recording this in the middle of February. Now, this video is going to drop when I'm on vacation in Hawaii. So when you are watching this, I'm probably in Hawaii, depending on when you're watching it. So I'm planning on this to go out when I'm going to be gone for about 10 days to kind of have this strategy video, give you guys some content while I'm out. And hopefully it is really, really helpful because PropsMadness, I've found it incredibly helpful with my NBA player prop betting. I use it literally every single day when I bet on the NBA. So we can get right into it. Just remember, like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. Obviously helps me out a ton. And if you end up wanting to check out PropsMadness after this video, I put a link to them in the description of the video as well as the pinned comment. If you do want to sign up, you can get a 7-day free trial, 7 days for free. And then if you use the promo code my last name Modi, M-O-D-I, all caps, you can get 25% off. Helps support the channel if you're interested in doing that. If not, no problem. So right off the bat, and I'm just going to start as basic as possible with PropsMadness. It gives you a lot of information that you see on a lot of different kind of hit rate sources with so much more. But right off the bat, you look at the different market, so points all the way down to turnovers, and you click this little drop down here to get the odds of where every sportsbook is offering this price. Now, one thing that they don't have is alternate lines. So right now, Jason Tatum's over-under is 26.5. If you wanted to look at what he would be 30 plus, unfortunately, you can't do that on PropsMadness, but I mean, obviously they're still amazing and you can still look at the current lines and you can see DraftKings all the way down to BetRivers and everything in between from Bovada, Pinnacle, Underdog, PrizePicks, whatever you're looking for in terms of the mainline odds you can get on PropsMadness. And then from here, it's the color chart. Red equals under, green equals over. And you can look at whatever time frame you want. So right now I have the last 10 games. You can look at the last 5, or you can just type in a huge number and get the entire season. Like 48 games, you see Tatum has hit over 26.5 points in 24 of 48 games. And you see it's very front heavy. Like he hit a lot at the beginning of the year and has really struggled from a scoring perspective over the last, whatever this is, 20, 25, 30 games. This is about as basic as it gets. And you can do a ton of filters. You can look at home splits, road splits, how head-to-head matchups, so how he performs against the team he's playing both this year and last year. So we look at like how has he performed against the Mavericks in 2023, 2024, last season versus this season. How has he performed on back-to-backs this year? How has he performed in the regular season? How has he performed in the playoffs? You look at like in the playoffs, how does he perform? All that's different stuff you can look at. What I really, really like about PropsMadness is how much you can drill into the matchups and how much you can filter depending on what information you're trying to see. So if you scroll down a little bit, you see this chart here with an NBA court, and then you see the play type analysis. So what this is giving you is the top play types for where this player scores the majority of their points. So you see Jason Tatum scores the majority of his points in isolation all the way down to putback, which equates for 0.2 points per game or 1%. Next to that, we see opponent defensive rank. And then this is telling you how well the team that Jason Tatum is playing, in this case, the Mavericks, how well that they guard the different play types. So right off the bat, we see Tatum scores the majority of his points via isolation, 6.7 points per game, 21%. The Mavericks rank 28th in terms of how they guard this play type, meaning they allow the third most points per game via isolation. Green equals good, red equals bad in terms of the matchup. Not only that, but you can look at the shot on the floor where this player scores the majority of their points and then how the defense guards that area of the floor. So we see Tatum scores 46% of his points via the above the break three-pointer, which is this shot zone right here. But the Mavericks are the 4th best defense at allowing above the break three-pointers. What I really, really like about PropsMadness is not only does it give you all this information, but it gives you how players with a similar scoring profile perform against this team. And it does that for assists. It does that for rebounds as well. So you can look at like whatever stat you want to look at, you can look at how players perform in similar, or how similar players perform in this matchup. And as you can see, 5 of 12 players with Jason Tatum's scoring profile have gone over, and they've gone, or yeah, 5 of 12 have gone over, and they've gone under by an average of 1.42 points below what their over-under is priced at. So you might think that the Mavericks are a good matchup, but this is telling you that maybe they're not. So when it says by PropsMadness, it's looking at, again, players with the same profile of whatever stat you're looking for against this team. If you click by position, it'll just give you the position that he plays. So in this case, Jason Tatum is a power forward. It's just giving you how power forwards perform against the Mavericks without really any look at their player profile. So like it goes from George Niang all the way down to Zion Williamson. Obviously, looking by position isn't as helpful because these are completely different players. I mean, we see Zion with an over-under of 23.5. We see George Niang with an over-under of 7.5. You know, just because Zion went over doesn't really help a guy like George Niang, which doesn't really help a guy like Aaron Gordon. You know what I mean? So I do use the by position, but I much more use the by PropsMadness. And then what you can do, so this little not graph, but this little drop down, whatever you want to call it, right here. It gives you all the different metrics you can filter by. So we can filter, okay, how does Jason Tatum perform when he plays 30 plus minutes? So whenever he plays 30 plus minutes, that's what you can look at. What I like to do personally is I look a lot at the play types in the shot zone. So if you hover over a matchup, you see D rank versus DPT, defensive rank versus player type, isolation. That's where you see the 28. That's what's telling you right here. Third most points per game via isolation. The one right below that, D rank versus DPT2. So defensive rank versus the player play type, where they score the second majority of their points, which in this case for Jason Tatum is as the pick and roll ball handler. Then you can go down the list. D rank versus DSZ, defensive rank versus the shot zone of the player, which is the above the break 3-pointer, which is also right here, which we already know that the Mavericks are the 4th best defense at stopping above the break 3-pointers. And then below that, it's where the player scores the second majority of their points. So the defensive rank versus DSZ2, shot zone 2 for the player, which is this one right here. Tatum scores 32% of his points in the restricted area, and the Mavericks are the 14th ranked defense guarding that. So, all right, the Mavericks are really bad at guarding players in isolation, which is where Tatum scores the majority of his points. Well, you can filter, all right, how does Tatum perform against teams that are bad at stopping isolation scores? So you click whatever stat you specifically want to look at, and then you can filter it by what stat you're looking for. So I want to look at the bottom 10 teams in isolation and how Tatum performs. So he's played 16 games against teams in the bottom 10. He's only gone over in 5 of 16. So there's really no correlation between Tatum playing a bad isolation team and when he goes over his point prop, right? Really no play here. But you can look at like defensive player type 2, defensive shot zone, how Tatum performs against teams, and this is just defensive net rating, how he performs against teams that are in the bottom half of defensive net rating, a little bit of a better hit rate, 13 of 24, but it's still missed a lot recently for Jason Tatum, how he performs against teams in the bottom in terms of PITP, that's points in the paint, usage rate, field goal attempts, field goal percentage, all the way down to like, I mean, anything you can possibly want to look at, you can filter on PropsMadness, which is really helpful stuff. So another thing you can do is look at how they perform with or without certain players. Like let's pretend Jaylen Brown was out for this game. How does Jason Tatum perform when Jaylen Brown misses? Well, really well. If this was the price without Jaylen Brown, this would be a good look on Jason Tatum. We see that he's gone over 26.5 points in 6 of 7 games without Jaylen Brown. So maybe Tatum's the type of guy you only bet when they have a missing player. And another thing that's cool about PropsMadness is, so I want to look at like his field goal attempts, right? How many times does Tatum shoot when Jaylen Brown is out? So you click the filter you're looking for, and then it tells you right here, which I think is awesome. It gives you the season average. So we know on the season, Jason Tatum shoots about 20 field goals per game, 19.9 to be exact. Well, without Jaylen Brown in the lineup, he takes about 2 more field goal attempts per game. So his field goal attempts goes up to 22 from 20. So now what we can do is if we know Tatum's going to shoot about 22 times per game, instead of just looking at games where Jaylen Brown is out, we can look at field goal attempts where at a minimum field goal attempts is 20. He's gone over in 16 of 24 games. So if we know that Tatum's going to take at least 20 shots, which he does more often than not with Jaylen Brown out of the lineup, well, then that hit rate goes up to 2/3. So that's a lot of how you can use Props Madness. I mean, there's a ton of different things you can filter for. I'm going to give you bets that I actually took on this date and reasons why I took them. So I'm going to look at a couple bets here. Number one, I'm going to look at Austin Reeves. So I took his assist. This is an actual bet that I have. I'm going to walk you through what I looked at. So right off the bat, we looked at Austin Reeves. His over-under is 6.5, best offered we see at plus 104 on a couple books. He's only gone over 6.5 in 15 of 43 games at a 35% hit rate. Well, so why do I like this play? Well, let's look at games without. Who is no longer on the Lakers? Well, they traded D'Angelo Russell around Christmas. So let's just look at how Austin Reeves does without D'Angelo Russell. That 35% hit rate goes up to about 60%. And we see that 4 separate times Austin Reeves went under, he had 6 assists. 6 right here, 6 right here, 6 right here, 6 right here. And we can change this number. So like if I wanted to bet Austin Reeves 5.5, you just click this little minus sign. That number goes to 5.5. We see he's gone over that number in 14 of 17 games. So we want to say, okay, well, what's different without D'Angelo Russell? His minutes are about the same, 34.7 versus 34.9. So we hover over potential assists, and we see he averages about 2 more potential assists per game without D'Angelo Russell. Goes from 11.2 to 13.2. So we can say, okay, if we think he's getting about 13 potential assists per game, how does he perform in the assist department? So we go potential assists, we go to 13, and we see that he's hit in 12 of 16 games, having 6 or more or going 6 in 3 of them, and then another game he missed, he had 5. So it's like of the 4 times he missed, he performed really, really well. Another thing you can do is look at opponent assists allowed. So if you hover over the matchup when you're looking at assists, we see that the Warriors have allowed the 18th most assists. This is just in general. It doesn't give you by position. It doesn't give you by player. It just gives you how many assists this team has allowed. We see that it's the 18th ranked for the Warriors, which means that they've allowed the 13th most assists just in general. That's helpful, but not super helpful. We scroll down and look by Props Madness, and we see, okay, this is a really, really good matchup for Austin Reeves. 8 of 12 players with a similar playmaking style to Austin Reeves have hit their over, a 67% hit rate. And what I like about what Props Madness does is they actually bold when you're looking at the exact player. So we see Austin Reeves is bolded right here. And what do we see? 10 assists, 7 assists. So we know that just looking at the hit rate for Austin Reeves doesn't tell the full story. It's a really good matchup. We hover over the head-to-head. Guess what? It's both games with 13 potential assists and 18 potential assists. That's really good. And then we also know, as we already looked at, games without D'Angelo Russell, 10 of 17. Very, very good. So this is why I was on a play for Austin Reeves. I really liked it. Another bet that I liked, just to kind of walk you through another example for a different market, is rebounds. So I took Jackson Hayes over 6.5 rebounds in this game. Another situation where you look at the hit rate is disgusting. So why do we like it? Well, let's look. Jackson Hayes. What do we know that's different about the Lakers? They traded away Anthony Davis. So Jackson Hayes averages 4 rebounds per game, has only had 7 or more in 4 games. Let's see how it does without Anthony Davis, who is no longer on the team. So we hover over, we take Anthony Davis, we take without. We see that his rebound average goes from 4 up to 7, and his hit rate is still not an amazing, but a not terrible 3 out of 6 games. We also can see that of the games he missed, 2 times he had exactly 6 rebounds. 6 against the Clippers, 6 against the Blazers. That's not great. Let's see how his rebound chances change without Anthony Davis. So we just hover over rebound chances. We see that his season average rebound chances is 8, goes all the way up to 13.5. So again, we want to say, all right, how does he perform when he has at least 13 potential rebounds or rebound chances, which is what his average is without Anthony Davis? Well, it's 3 out of 4 games, averaging almost 9 rebounds per game. We hover over the matchup. We see that the Warriors have allowed the 8th most rebounds just in general, but we also know that it's a really, really good matchup for Jackson Hayes' position. Now this, unfortunately, we don't have enough data on Jackson Hayes, so we don't have it by Props Madness, but we know that these kind of center forward guys have hit their rebound prop over in 5 out of 7 games against the Warriors. So it is a really good matchup from a from a rebound perspective against the Warriors. So I bet it. And there's so many different ways you can filter. Like you can filter by a guy like Jackson Hayes, who scores the majority of his points in the restricted area. We want to see, okay, how does he perform against teams that are bad in the paint, right? That don't guard a lot in the paint, so that are in the bottom 10 guarding the paint. You can do that. You can filter by field goal attempts, as I already showed you. You can filter by opponent pace. How does this player perform when he's playing against teams that run a fast pace? You can get that data. It's just, there's a ton of different ways you can go about it. And I really, really like it. And you can do that again for points, rebounds, and assists. And then if you want to combine a market, you can do points plus assists, rebounds plus assists, PRA. You can look at first quarter points, like how does this player perform in the first quarter versus the full game. We see that Jackson Hayes, I mean, this without Anthony Davis, has been pretty good in the first quarter at scoring points. His over-under is 2.5, best offered at plus 105. This could be a play. And the last bet that I took, and this was a point prop, so I just want to give you the full gambit of how I look at rebounds, points, and assists. I took Norman Powell, and I took him over 22.5 points. This was the bet. So right off the bat, we see that the hit rate for Norman Powell is very good. 65% of the time, he scores 23 or more points. We see that it's pretty balanced, right? He started really hot, had a little bit of a lull, and has been really good recently. So like there's nothing really about the season like Jason Tatum, where it was only at the beginning of the year he was playing well. Well, okay, what do we know about the Clippers? Well, they have Kawhi Leonard back. So let's look at how he's performed. Has the scoring gone down in games where Kawhi Leonard has played? Not really. Averages 24 points on the year. With Kawhi Leonard, averages 24.2 points, has hit the over in 6 out of 11 games. Okay, that looks good from that perspective. Let's look at the matchup. Players have performed well against the Pacers. Players that have a similar scoring profile to Norman Powell. 60% of them have hit their over. And what do these guys all have in common? They're heavy spot-up guys. Now, I know that technically the position or the play type that leads to the most points for Norman Powell is transition. The biggest thing for him is spot-up. And all these guys are spot-up shooters. So we can see, all right, well, how does Norman Powell perform against teams that are bad at guarding spot-up shooters? You can look, opponent spot-up points allowed. We're going to look bottom half matchups, 16 to 30, teams that are below average. Well, that hit rate is 71%, averaging 26 roughly points per game. Okay, but how many of those games did Kawhi Leonard play? Well, let's look. With Kawhi Leonard, it's only 2 of 5, which is a little bit scary, but one game he scored 22, and look, they won that game by 17 points. Another game, they won by 59. So like you want to look into these games and see, okay, is there really any correlation here? One by 59, and again, one by 26, only played 29 minutes. But we look in general, teams that are bad at guarding spot-up shooters, Norman Powell has a lot of success against them. And I could go through every single one, but there are a ton of ways you can use PropsMadness to help your NBA player prop betting. Another bet that I considered today was Paolo Banchero on his assists, because we know, like, it's been a weird year. He's missed a bunch of time. Franz Wagner's missed a bunch of time. How does he perform when him and Franz are in the lineup? Well, he's gone over this number in 7 of 12 games, over under 4.5. He's actually had 6 or more in all those games as well. How has he performed against the Nuggets? He's only played them once, had 15 potential assists in that game. Last year, had 11 assists, 17 potential assists in that game. And then the last thing that I want to show you is, if you're ever curious about what happened in a certain game, like, oh, he only had 2 assists in that game, if you hover over a matchup, it'll kind of give you not a ton of details, but the high level details of that game. So we see that the Magic lost that game by 29. He only played 26 minutes, and he had 9 potential assists in that game. They just couldn't convert any of them, 2 of 9. And it tells you who missed the game. So we see like the top players that missed that game. Franz didn't play, Jalen Suggs didn't play, and Mo Wagner didn't play. So there's a ton of different ways you can use PropsMadness. I highly, highly recommend you check it out. Again, there's a link in the description of the video as well as the pinned comment. Use promo code all caps MODI, MODI, if you want to sign up. If you have any questions about PropsMadness, feel free to either DM me on my Twitter handle at JediModi, or just put a comment in this video. I'll check them out when I can. I can't promise that I'll get back to you between the dates of like February 12th to February 22nd, because that's when I'm going to be gone. But I will try to respond as much as I can. Hopefully you found this video helpful. If you did, let me know in the comments if you want more of these strategy type videos. Again, thanks everybody for watching. Make sure to like the video, comment, subscribe, and have a good one.